Nowadays, we often tend to speak as though we were lone individuals, completely independent and self-sufficient. We also tend to think that most of the relationships that we have with other people are relationships that we have because we've formed contracts after we've considered all of our own self-interest. But with some reflection, we realize that we're not lone individuals, that instead we should think of ourselves as persons who are birthed forth from societies that pre-exist us. That what it means to be a person instead of an individual is to have been born of the great family and nation and church societies. And so I want to say a little bit of something about each of these great societies, the family, the nation, and the church. So first of all, the family. All of us have a family, no matter how absent or dysfunctional it may be. Everyone has a mother or a father somewhere. And in relationship to that mother and father, we have a relationship to grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and siblings. And eventually that family relationship extends to the entire family of humanity. And so our moral obligation to humanity is birthed at the very same time we are. We don't have a moment when we're without a family or without any obligation to the great family of humanity. We know that we are human because we were born to human parents. And then second, the nation. We might not think of the nation as being one of the great societies, a natural society like the family, but the reality is that none of us have no birthday and no birthplace. To be bodily reality is to have place and time, to exist in place and time. And so everyone has a birthday, everyone has a birthplace. Everyone can take out their passport and say, this is when I was born, this is where I was born. And even if I reject the place where I'm born and I move somewhere else, I still have to acknowledge the reality of where I came and when I came into this world. I might want to be an ancient Roman, I might want to be an American from the founding period, but the reality is that I was born in Chicago in the 1970s, and I can't escape that reality even if I've moved to Texas. So everyone has a mother tongue and a fatherland. Everyone has a place that they have come into existence. And so we also have a natural obligation to that nation, to that place and time in which we were born. And then third, the church. We might think of the church as a voluntary association that we've joined, but in fact, the church is one of those great pre-existing societies into which we are born. Everyone who comes into existence comes in some relationship to everything that is. We are in relationship to everything that is also in being. We have a relationship to the entire cosmos. And through our relationship with the entire cosmos, we have a relationship to the first principles of everything that exists, to the beginning and end of all things, to the Alpha and the Omega. And all human cultures have referred to that relationship to the first principles of existence as the religious obligation. And so that's something that we need to acknowledge. Now, we can debate whether a family is dysfunctional or healthy. We can debate what the borders of a nation are or what the best regime for a nation is. And we can debate whether we can know by our reason the one God or the many gods or a triune God or a unitary God. But we can't deny the existence of the family, the nation, and the church. Those are pre-existing societies that have given birth to us. And so it's healthier to think of ourselves as persons than to think of ourselves as lone individuals. The word person comes from the Latin persona, and persona in Latin means a mask. It was a theatrical term on the ancient stage, meaning the role or the mask that you were wearing as a character in the play. And essentially, we are persons when we have faces, when we face the family and the nation and the church that have given us birth. We come to maturity by facing the societies which have given birth to us. And George Washington and the American founders knew about this relationship of piety towards God, Father, and country by reading Cicero, the ancient Stoic philosopher and orator from the Republican period of Rome. We know that George Washington had a copy of Cicero's book on duties in his library at Mount Vernon. And we know that one of the first things that George Washington did when he had come home victorious from fighting the French and Indian War in 1765, one of the first things that he did to decorate his home was to purchase a little sculpted figurine of pious Aeneas. This very famous sculpture of Aeneas carrying his father on his shoulders, and his father is holding the gods of the household. And then at his heels, running behind him, is his son Ascanius. And so this beautiful sculpture in the round of pious Aeneas, who has piety to his God, to the gods of his fathers, and also has pity on his son, piety upwards to God and father and country, and pity downwards to those who depend on us, was for George Washington the epitome of justice, the epitome of respecting those highest debts of honor that we had to God, father, and country. And George Washington spoke about the fact that if someone doesn't respect these highest obligations that he referred to as debts of honor, if someone doesn't respect those debts of honor, we can't really expect them, we shouldn't be surprised if they don't, respect other debts that they themselves have entered into contractually with their equals. And so George Washington, in his circular letter, his very famous letter calling for a constitutional convention, talks about how we have these debts of honor to the men who fought in the Revolutionary War and to those who gave us public credit for the War of Independence. And he says that if we don't respect these debts of honor, we will call down upon ourselves the aggravated vengeance of heaven. So the American founders and George Washington took these very foundational obligations very seriously.